Hello and welcome to Classeek 15, the bite-sized advice podcast for young and emerging classical musicians. 15 minutes of top tips from an established classical star. I'm Jack Pepper, I'm a composer and radio presenter, and today we are meeting the German concert violinist, moderator and climate ambassador, Lea Bruckner. Born in 1997, she began playing the violin aged 7 and was soon winning federal prizes and performing as a soloist alongside the likes of the New Symphony Orchestra Berlin and the Beethoven Society in Bonn. In 2021, she pioneered a new online programme called Music for Our Planet. It draws attention to climate change, and the Stuttgart Philharmonic Orchestra, Berlin State Opera and Beethoven Orchestra Bonn are among those who have already taken part. As a respected champion of sustainability in classical music, she's been invited as a speaker and musician to the World Classical Music Conference Classical Next, to the Bundestag in Berlin, and to the World Food Forum of the United Nations in Rome. Truly, she has led the way. And so, speaking on a video call, I started by asking Lea where her passion for music and planet came from.
Yeah, basically, I was always kind of connected to nature and environment. I grew up in a very small village, very like in the nature in Germany, close to the Netherlands borders. And I was always spending a lot of time in nature. And more and more, I started also to realize how much it's changing, actually, basically more or less the last 10 years. And then COVID came and or not just me, but many people had a lot of time. And I started to spend this time with reading a lot about climate change, environment, what is actually changing. Also, like Greta Thunberg, for example, was of course a person where I slowly realized, okay, the young generation, it's not just me, but many people are aware of what's actually happening. And I was always trying to combine music, what I'm doing on stage, my personality as an artist, to combine it with another field. And that's why after COVID or during COVID, and then also after COVID, I really forced this topic kind of to really try out how can I bring both on stage. And first I started with this Music for Our Planet, this online initiative, where I made an open call kind of for artists to send videos and send a message to the online world in COVID times, in lockdown, against climate change and for a more sustainable future. And then further on, it kind of developed that I was speaking on big events like the World Food Forum of the United Nations, the Berlin government, and many more. And that's how it kind of started to grow.
So just take us into the impact this has on a classical musician, say, particularly when you think about classical musicians traveling the planet and the impact that musicians have because of the nature of what they do. How does this impact a classical musician, and how does a classical musician impact this?
I think the first step is that the classical musician impact this. Because that's going to be quasi like kind of the first step. And the second step is then that, climate impacts us because we are not going to travel to certain areas anymore. So basically what I think is, first of all, that we have to get the education in this topic, because you cannot speak about something or try to involve it in your organization if you don't really know why and what is happening. So that's why I'm trying to bring this topic to musicians, to say, okay, look, take some time and educate yourself, not just musicians, general, everybody, like really read about it, what is actually happening, because as soon you understand, you can also come in the next step. And the next step then is acting and doing something. And especially for musicians, this is really to use their own voice, to recognize, first of all, also in the classical music business, because in pop, it's more common than in classic, that we have a voice as soon we enter to the stage. And as soon we enter to stage, there are people who bought tickets to listen to us. And we have to be aware that we can use our voice, in brackets, not just to play music, but furthermore for complete different messages. I mean, there are sometimes messages like, for example, anti-Semitism, which is kind of not to misunderstand, popular to bring on stage, for example, for conductors, because this is a clear topic for everybody. Everybody in music businesses against this, that there's anti-Semitism happening. But it's not very obvious that everybody is against the climate change or wants to help against the climate change. So it's not a very clear 100% positive or attractive topic. And we have to be aware. I mean, for example, in Germany, there are numbers that we have more audience than the first, second, and third football league, which means we have more than 20 million listeners in the culture industry, like high culture industry, if I take theaters and operas also to it. And that is like loads of people what we could really reach with that. And if we speak up about that on stage, or maybe we don't want to speak up on stage about that, but we could maybe be the kind of the force in the background to force the organizers to do something sustainable. What I'm saying, for example, which is really easy for organizers to sell kind of 3 tickets. So to say, okay, let's say the entrance of the concert is 15 euro, we're gonna raise it to 17 euro. That's kind of the minimum. And those 2 euros are going to a reforestation or replanting organization in the area of the concert. So the help is coming really in the area. This is something what is happening kind of background behind the stage, not on stage. And there are many things in the organization what you can include, of course.
And you speak of action. How active has the classical music world been so far? How sustainable, and how have you, in terms of the reactions that you've had to your work and your campaigns, how has the classical music world responded, or indeed not responded?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to say more not responded, because it's kind of I would call it really fight to tell the people why it should be important to at least think about this topic, not even to bring it on stage, to involve it in the organization. It's already the first step when I come into the first conversation with either conductors, managers, organizers, whatever. It's already there. It's a huge border to at least speak about this topic. So, and the next step is even farther, that we really go into the action. I mean, there are a few festivals and also a few concert houses who really like try to, for example, they change the electricity to green electricity. So they are not anymore supporting fossil fuels, which is great. But this should be kind of the base. I mean, we don't have to start even thinking about a green concert in a concert house who supports still, or which still supports fossil fuels. So this is, for example, something, of course, the musician cannot change, because I cannot go there and say, look, I'm just playing the concert if there's green electricity, but you are having a 10 years contract with fossil fuel company. So of course I have no power in my hands then to do that or to change that. And yeah, it's really hard to bring the action there. Also, because there is this very important topic of the abonnement system, like that the ticket sale is kind of guaranteed for the concert houses. And every time I am getting in conflict with, yes, it's nice, the topic, it's important topic, but our abonnement audience is 60 and above, and that's not the generation who cares about climate change. And partly they might be right, but also partly I think they are totally forgetting what we could actually win by bringing the green topic in, because we could win a whole generation who is at the moment completely excluded from the classical music business, because they just don't feel like there's something to see in the concert house apart from music. And of course, I mean, I'm a classical musician. I find the reason to go in the concert house just for music. Don't misunderstand. Just I think that it's not enough for many of the green voters of the young generation anymore. So if you would involve that topic, we could reach out to a whole new range of audience, which doesn't feel represented at all in the concert house at the moment. And this is what organizers forget, because the generation 60 and above, I mean, bad to say, but it's a time limit for them to go to concerts. It's not anymore the next 50 years, it's guaranteed. But the generation which is now 20, 30, 40 years old, there's loads of space still for them to come, and also time space. So we could really reach new audience.
So what does sustainable mean in the context of classical music? If you're speaking about, a young musician wanting to be sustainable, or indeed, a venue listening, for example, we've mentioned the sort of green energy, and we've mentioned the tree tickets, which is a lovely idea, sort of add an extra couple of euros and then plant a tree in the local area. What other kind of bullet points could you give us for what a sustainable career or a sustainable concert might be?
So a pretty common example is that, for example, some soloist or like kind of leading person in the concert is getting sick suddenly, and the concert organizer has to come up with an idea who else to get. So why to fly in somebody? For example, the concert is in Berlin. Why to fly in somebody from New York or Tokyo or wherever they are coming from? If the original artist is sick or whatever, why not to just take a local artist? I really saw concerts where they did even like a advertisement that our bassist today in the string quartet or a string quintet, sorry, or the orchestra, the bassist flew in from New York just for this concert and going back tomorrow. I mean, there are loads of qualified musicians around. So stop thinking that always it has to be global, because just then you get the quality. This is something in the mindset of classical music. If I played in Carnegie Hall or in Tokyo or in Seoul, and I write this in my biography, I'm a qualified artist. Doesn't matter what I did actually in Carnegie Hall, but I was in Carnegie Hall, which means that even if I was just part of a big orchestra, like I accidentally, somebody called me like, can you jump in? I can write it in my biography, and I suddenly raise up in the status of a musician and being a good musician. So this is a definitely mindset what should be changed, that not everything global is great. But of course, there are these things like electricity, mobility, like how the whole team of this concert house, for example, how they are traveling to work, how the artists are traveling. Like if I have an artist in Munich from Berlin, why he or she has to fly in? I mean, there are trains going every, 15 minutes. So that would be, for example, definitely something I would delete from every kind of contract, that it's possible to make an in-flight flight. I mean, of course, if you're talking about China or something, and there's a 2,000 kilometer distance, that's one thing. But in Europe, everything is so close. We can really reach all the destinations by train. And then, I mean, it's really the small things, like, for example, programs. I'm in conversation about printing programs, why it's necessary. And then all the organizers always say, yeah, because the audience 60 above wants to read the program in the concert. I said, I mean, usually anyway, the concert hall is dark, so you should be focused on the concert. So why do you have to go through a program during the concert? I mean, if you don't like the concert, if it's so boring that you have to read the program, then either you should not go to the concert, or the artist should choose another program that is getting more exciting, but don't read the program. So there are many concert houses who have these digital big walls everywhere in the foyer, everywhere in the entrance. So you can really just post the program there, and that's it. And nobody needs to read like a 8 pages book, kind of almost in the concert. I understand, of course, you want to take something with, but it's a thing. I mean, did you ever check after a concert the rubbish bin in the entrance or the exit? What is in there after the concert? All those ones in the concert use programs.
A huge field also how to make a cultural institution more sustainable is the architecture of the cultural buildings. Everybody always talks about, for example, LEDs inside the building, but there's a huge space outside which has to be used. For example, the roof greening of the parking space, greening of the entrance area, etc., which can cool down the temperature between 5 till 11 degrees. Especially for big concert houses in the city centers, it would not just be the possibility of cooling temperature, but also to create space for insects, etc. too. And in the question about what can be done in general, I would also like to mention that political decision makers are one of the stakeholders who could make it possible financial-wise to change for sustainable management and cultural institutions.
So there are so many things that organizers could do and could think about. Of course, there would have to be the will to change and the open mindset to do something. Yeah, and for artists, I mean, it's all our personal decision how sustainable we will live. I mean, of course, there are these typical things like what we eat. If we live vegetarian, vegan, I mean, we all know there's this debate going on that, the meat consume, for example, is a huge emission factor in this whole climate topic. Then, how we travel, what is also our personal decision, because not always the organizer is booking things. So you can just easily decide by yourself, okay, I go by train, or I meet together with other artists, we go together by car. Musicians always say we are not political, but we are political as soon there's a sponsor with a huge logo behind our back, because we are representing this sponsor. And if there is Lufthansa or Ryanair or VW or BMW or whoever in the background, and we are playing in front of this logo a whole violin concerto, we are not political. This time is over where musicians were not political, because as soon you play for something, for a brand, you are political and you agree with their values. So don't think that you are not political just because you're a classical musician and you actually don't talk about any topic, but you are giving your face and your body and your music to support messages.
It goes also in the direction of green banking. There's a choice that has to be made. Either you prefer to have a green bank, which is financing green energy and sustainable companies, or you choose a bank which is financing, for example, fossil fuels. And there's a lot of money in the cultural business, not just from the artists, but also from the cultural institutions, from the festival owners, promoters, etc. So there has to be made a decision what you want to do and what you want to support with your money.
You're a very inspiring speaker about this. I think it's worth just reminding people that this is just one part of what you do. You are a concert violinist as well. And this is something, I really relate to as well as a musician in my 20s. The idea of having different hats, I would say. So doing different things. So you're a climate ambassador, you're a moderator, you are a violinist. So how do you divide your time? Are you playing the violin every day and then the climate ambassador work is on the side? How do you actually balance practically the different things you do?
I mean, practically, we all don't practice 24 hours a day. I mean, even if we are practicing really a lot, which is like 6 till 8 hours, let's say, for the maximum of a month of practice, what is healthy to survive, there are still loads of hours left where you can easily do something. So instead of, playing a game on my phone or computer, I prefer then, let's say, spend half an hour, 1 hour and scroll through social media and search for posts of, there are so many organizations, Greenpeace, NABU, all these organizations who are posting really interesting information posts every day. So also this, like just changing my kind of algorithm on social media, that they're popping up super interesting information. So kind of even without spending extra time, I'm getting more informations. And then, I was studying also a second master's degree in cultural management. I finished it last July, and that was also helping me because I chose topics during the master's degree also to which are related to this topic. So I was really reading their for example, emission portraits, kind of, we call it in Germany, like where big cultural institutions, they got emission calculation of their house. So and this is something what you can read on. For example, in Germany, there's from the government, it's called Aktionsnetzwerk Nachhaltigkeit. If there's somebody listening from Germany, it's about sustainability in cultural institutions, and they are giving money that cultural institutions can measure the emissions, which is the absolutely first step in going to the sustainable direction. Because if you don't know where are your highest emissions, you cannot reduce them. And there's also from the EU, for example, there's a lot of money for sustainable or green concerts. Just if you are an organizer, also you get money always from the same type of companies and not applying for new money, then of course it's difficult to change.
Lea Bruckner, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much too.
And that's about it for this edition of Classeek 15. Great to have your company. All of the episodes in the series are available, as ever, on all the usual podcast platforms and online at classeek.com. There you can find all of Classeek's latest news, their online concert series and video on demand. And whilst you're online, don't forget to check out Classeek's social media for the very latest news and opportunities. That's at Classeek Music. Thanks so much for joining me, Jack Pepper, and until the next time, happy playing, practicing and listening. See you soon.